Well, Jack, you've got the list of questions, but we're both being in the hot seat. Jack hasn't done any homework, right? So
nope, I haven't cheated on the test. I don't have no cards.
Okay.
We're gonna
no
go
peeking at my paper.
No, we're gonna go through these, and maybe your question got picked. We'll see.
Woo, 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 woo.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast, brought to you by Entrepreneur.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice. I'm your hostess, Corrin Campbell. With me is Jack McCarthy, and this is episode 2 of our hot seat. Is your butt hurting yet, Jack?
Welcome. The seat is on fire.
It's on flames.
The questions are hot. The seat is hot. My butt is on fire. This is going to be a great episode.
I can't wait to kick this off. OMG.
We're just getting our 2020 senioritis out of the way.
Yeah. Well, Jack and I both celebrate Christmas, so you can tell that Christmas is in a couple of days for us because we're getting a little goofy around here. But I mean, part of it too is that I just like being in the hot seat a little bit, especially because it makes me question or confirm my knowledge as we go through it. And, you know, sometimes we get to revisit things that maybe we as artists haven't thought about, right? That's one thing that's really cool about crowdsourcing these questions is that both me, Jack, or you listening, you might kind of get to revisit something that you haven't thought about in a while that could be a benefit to your career. Yeah,
for sure. I think it also, allows us to look back at questions that we maybe thought differently about a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it might be.
That's any question most people have asked me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, well, Jack, you've got the list of questions, but we're both being in the hot seat. Jack hasn't done any homework, right? So
nope, I haven't cheated on the test. I don't have no cards.
Okay.
We're gonna
no peeking at my paper.
No, we're gonna go through these, and maybe your question got picked. We'll see.
Woo 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 woo. All right. Well, why don't you kick us off with the first one?
Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so question comes in that says, how do you go about segmenting your email list starting from scratch? The list is new, but I have followers at all stages. I assume they're talking about all stages of the buddy system.
Well, my opinion is that you segment everything that you have information for. You know, in theory, if you've got people at multiple stages of the buddy system, you've got people who are brand new as they sign up. You've got people who are opting in for specific interest points, specific content, right? If you have an ultimate album launch or if you're running a certain kind of campaign, you might want to tag where they came in, obviously segmenting purchasers of certain products, I mean, those are things that I would do straight out the gate. And that's actually something when we migrated Entrepreneur to over to Drip, we were like, okay, who has what training? Who has what membership level? What is the membership history? What are the things that they opted in for at the get, right? Was it for a fan finder thing? Was it for the buddy system workbook? But this is a place where especially when you're migrating, you want to retain as much of that data as possible because at that point you're going to lose, date added, right? How many days they've been on your mailing list, stuff like that, which, that's not the biggest metric to be freaked out about losing. But you definitely want to pull over anything that your mailing list was collecting for you so that you could, keep track of that in the future. Yeah, for sure. I would say broadly zooming out as well, looking, like you said, Corrin, looking at your customers, I would say look at your repeat customers, have a segment for that, kind of knowing that you've got people who are in the ascension stage, what that might look like. I would say segment your LTV if you can, lifetime value, maybe segment that into like sub $100, over $100, over $200, depending on how long you've, had a customer base. This kind of varies, but I think that can be helpful as well. Right. Segmenting people based on bribes that they've signed up for is good, especially if you're migrating from one autoresponder to another. That can be really helpful to make sure that, if you decide to try to pull people into a content series that you've got going, that you're not, mailing to people who have already been through it.
So I think that that's helpful as well. Segmenting based on lead magnets can be cool. But I think I think that checks all the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely any information that you've gathered in your previous autoresponder is probably going to be helpful, So I would say, if it's easier to think about it, if you feel like you got crazy in your last mailing list automator, if you feel like, oh gosh, I was tracking way more things than I needed to, and I got a little bit too granular, like to the point that I didn't use things, evaluate what you have been using in your previous automator and look at what information you used, what information you didn't. And for the information you didn't, is it because, you just decided not to take an action on that just yet? Or is it because it's extra, right? Because
yeah, totally.
It's great to make segments, but at a certain point, you could end up in the weeds on it and cluttering up your space, which is going to require you to filter more aggressively as you send things out. So that is something else I think that I consider when I'm moving a mailing list around.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I've audited probably too many email marketing platforms that have just been like over segmented, and it's like, well, you're not doing anything with this. Like this little segment of 4 people doesn't need to be here. Throw a tag on them or something like that. But yeah, I totally agree. Like if you're overdoing it, I mean, hopefully if you're starting fresh, like this is the guidance to not overdo it. But if you're migrating, like look back at the things that you didn't use and determine why you didn't use them. Was it just, waiting for a reason to use them, or finding no reason to use them because there really wasn't one?
Right. Well, and then think about the things you wish you had that you didn't.
Right.
See, as you're doing this migration, like maybe you're like, oh man, I wish I would have targeted people who bought this product. So while you're doing that migration, make sure you add that in this new mailing list provider and add the automation for that to happen in the future so that you never have to think about it again. That's the kind of stuff where you really want to learn from the past. So whether it's excess segmenting or not enough segmenting, right? It's best to kind of look back and be like, all right, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? And how do I make it better in the future? So that's usually when I develop something, I'm like, man, I wish it had been tracking people who did this, and I didn't. I always write that down I use a Mac, and I write it down on my notes so that I can like pull it up 3 years from now when I decide to move to another mailing list provider. Then I'm like, oh yeah, I need to make sure that I, that I have this implemented or whatever. So, but yeah, I think that's, the easiest thing is to look at, okay, what are my breaking points in the buddy system? Well, obviously you've got your opt-in, you've got certain types of opt-in, and then you've got purchases, right? So as long as you're making sure that you're tracking like when people hike themselves up the buddy system, as long as you've got one key catch, that's a really important thing to make sure that you have, set up when you migrate.
Yeah, totally. Have at least one rung, so to speak, on the, if you want to envision it like a ladder,
yeah,
where you can kind of identify where people are at.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, here's a follow-up question about email marketing and segmentation that kind of dovetails nicely. Mail list question specifically for MailChimp. My current list is pretty large, but pretty basic. I currently only have a few fields for first and last name, number of purchases, and email, but I have all my customer data in a spreadsheet from Bandcamp, but it's super extensive and I'm not sure which fields are useful and which aren't in terms of grouping in MailChimp. I know I want things like what items were purchased, t-shirt size, but what else is key? Location, did they pay with a coupon, et cetera, or is it better just to import everything and sort it out later as time goes on and I can see what is or isn't important to me? And if you can discuss how to go about this importing, I have Zapier, that would be great. So this is a kind of an extensive example of what we were talking about, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off by saying like, it's a disadvantage to be working in Bandcamp and trying to have, watertight integration with MailChimp or any autoresponder because you don't,
Right.
which really sucks because even if you were using MailChimp and you were in Shopify and using the ShopSync app, which is how we integrate with MailChimp now because the native integration got deprecated, being able to pull that data, as close to in real time as possible as things are actually happening in your store and as orders are getting updated and customer information is getting updated is probably one of the biggest benefits to being in a dedicated e-commerce platform like Shopify or really anything else that's not Bandcamp. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with that caveat.
Well, there's a couple. Let's be fair. There's a couple other stores that are that way too. I know Bandzoogel's store is that way. Squarespace Ecom is actually really terrible at a lot of communication outside of its own ecosystem. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, let's be fair. There are other things. Yeah. But
it's not just Bandcamp's fault.
Right. But the other ones don't take 15% of your freaking income. So,
Right.
Anyway, that's not the question that was asked. Don't get us started, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry. Did you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, well, so like the question is in terms of what fields are useful and how extensive should our listener be when it comes to importing, of their customer exports, how much of this stuff should they really be importing into their autoresponder? Should they, import everything and sort it out later? I wouldn't take that approach, honestly. Ooh, I think that
made my head hurt just as you said it.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't go.
No.
I definitely wouldn't go that approach.
Right. Because you can always save that CSV file, right? Like,
yeah.
I can't tell you how many CSV files. I'm a digital file hoarder though, so take this with a grain of salt. But the number of CSVs that I have just waiting in the wings in case I need some data off of them later on. I mean, and they're all, labeled so that I know exactly where they are, when they were, or whatever. But, so you don't have to be like me, but it is something that you can hold on to later. Or if you're talking about an export from Bandcamp, you can always export the information again. There's not really a time limit on that. So I think, very similar to the last question we answered, right? Is think about the information that's going to be useful for your purposes. So location, for example, are you a touring musician? If you're not, then maybe country location is helpful, but state by state isn't necessarily, and that's something that you're going to have to make a call on. Obviously products purchased are valuable, and you can use tags in MailChimp to do that. And you can also use segments to filter out multiple tags. So, if you want to know who has purchased a certain collection of products, you can also have segments for that using those tags so that you don't have to make another tag for that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's very similar. What are the things that you need to use it for? I mean, first name is obviously important. A lot of my people don't even have last names on their account unless they're a customer. In theory, with Bandcamp, you do. And, products purchased, and obviously you're not dealing with any kind of opt-in opportunity because, Bandcamp, but so you don't have to worry about tagging that. But I would say start there, and if you find that you need more information, you can always go back to it and re-import it. As long as that was one thing that I really did enjoy about MailChimp, even though I'm not, using it anymore, is that I could import, bulk mailing or bulk emails and like select an action. I can be like, oh, here's a whole list of people, and I can check tag, and it'll apply it to all of them. Whereas drips function is a little different. You have to do a bulk operation, and it's a little more cumbersome. So, but yeah, you can always tag those people later or, add information to them later. As long as the mailing is the same, then, you can always add it. So I would say save yourself some clutter, think critically about what you want to add. But after that, know that information is there and it's not going to go away because it can get overwhelming if you put too much stuff into your autoresponder.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that those are probably a good starting point. In terms of the technical, actually going about doing it, you mentioned having Zapier. In this case, the method of import isn't going to be through Zapier or any API because Bandcamp.
Because Bandcamp, end of sentence.
Yeah. It's going
same
to be
with Squarespace and Bansigle and several other providers.
Yeah. But in your case specifically because of Bandcamp,
right.
It'll be a direct import into MailChimp, which in this case actually will make your life a lot easier. You won't have to think about Zapier or anything like that.
Right.
So that would be the way to go about doing it. And then you just map up your fields from the CSV file to your list fields that you want them to be on, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. Those are a good little pair of questions.
Yeah. Yeah, really good. Both email marketing related. I love it. Send more emails, guys.
Yeah, send more emails about emails.
Yeah. Love it. Here's another question about releases. I'm about to release music for the first time ever. Once release day hits for my first single, assuming that I've created a buzz leading up to it, what's the first thing I should do next? Do I need an email list right away? Do I need merch if there's no demand for it yet? Should I be running FanFinder on a laughably tiny budget, or just creating content consistently for those who are paying attention, or any other advice for those who are super new to being an artist?
Well, can you read the first couple sentences of that again, Jack?
Yeah, I'm about to release music for the first time ever, and once release day hits for my first single, assuming that I've built a buzz leading up to it, what's the...
Assuming I've built a buzz is what's triggering in my head. And the reason why is that, this person is asking, I'm going to be doing this for the first time ever, and assuming I create a buzz, and it's like, wait, that can't be an assumption. I mean, if you're saying, and then do I run a fanfare, or then do I do this? I mean, I think that's, and the only reason why I'm centering in on that, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but is that's what marketing is. That's exactly all of the things that we teach and talk about is, in theory, buzz. You're either getting buzz for attention, you're getting buzz for opt-ins, you're getting buzz for sales, right? So to kind of like float over that in this question is, in my mind, kind of missing the point. I think what you're really going to want to do is strategize that buzz, right? Don't think about, okay, I'm assuming I've created a buzz and then I release this song, then what do I do? Because it's taking facts into evidence in theory that don't exist because, so I would say, FanFinder is a great way to, get people's attention. And if this is the first time you've ever released music, I think a cool thing would be to play some things live. Maybe not that song, maybe, songs that you have, played in the past or that aren't necessarily your originals, right? And get some interest there. Run some low budget, FanFinder-esque stuff on that, and then start talking about your single. Maybe follow it up with a right hand punch with like you play these songs and then you do some recurring content that doesn't have to cost you anything, or maybe you put some greenlight warmth boosting on it for all those new people, and then start talking about that single during those live streams. I think that would be the most efficient way to do something that's relatively lower budget, but then doesn't assume that you were able to create a buzz. Like you literally were purposely creating a buzz with that strategy.
Yeah, totally. I think the assuming I create a buzz section of this question kind of answers the question.
I know the person who submitted this question is like, dang it, guys. But we got to dig in.
Well, let me give a tactical approach from like a budgeting perspective and how I think I would lay it out. Kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, Corrin. What I think I would do is identify something that you could run FanFinder traffic on, whether it be a performance video ahead of time of the single or something else, an original or an older song or a future coming song, something that you can, run fan finder traffic on ahead of the release, whatever your first single is going to be. I would say, like, if you can allocate or save up, and this is something we talked about on last week's episode, like save up, $300, $400, if you need even a little less, just save up a dedicated amount of money so that it's not a laughable tiny budget. Start with something to start generating listeners in a short burst of time, and use that to kind of piggyback or to kind of kickstart listener generation. That will be kind of like your front end top of funnel. And then, yeah, like you were saying, Corrin, like work recurring media. I would say plan out a few weeks to a month or so of content that you can be putting out on a few different social channels to, engage with the people and educate the people that are kind of coming into your world for the very first time, and then use that as like the diving board. I think those would be like the first two things that I would focus on.
Yeah, and I think with recurring content for newer artists, I know a lot of people are like, what do I go live with? And trust me, guys, I don't go live barely ever. I do in my Facebook group and my membership site, but publicly I do not live stream. It's just not a practice of mine. And I understand why people are like, well, what do I do? Do I talk about myself? Do I, because my stuff is mostly chatting with fans, and they just want to listen to me talk. They don't care,
Yeah.
But when you're talking about new listeners, they're going to want to get to know you, but mostly because of the music, right? You really want to put forth the thing that they should be falling in love with the most. So whether that's your voice, whether it's your playing, and bringing some personality into it, but the majority of it shouldn't be talking if you're new, right? Because they'll get to know you through other things later. First, they just need to like the music. So even if you have most of your budget put in on this, front end top of funnel thing, as Jack's talking about, and you put a couple $100 on that, then your music performance videos that come after that, especially if they're live, even if they don't come live, like you'll be discouraged because only 5 people might show up. Maybe 0 people will show up, but you put some green light warmth boosting on that. And then all of those people who came in at the top are going to keep seeing music from you, right? And I think that's a really great way to actually set up your very first single as something that's exciting and that people want to get involved with. And that's something that Circa's been doing, even at his level. He's been generating a lot of top of funnel interest. He's been posting some raw videos of him learning piano and other things, songs that maybe are kind of in a raw state and just, unveiling a portion of them. And that's the kind of stuff that will just keep people engaged enough so that when you do finally launch that single, you're not just putting it out in the world. There's actually people who are ready for it, waiting for it, interested in it. And that's what is called a buzz.
Yeah, I totally agree. I hope that this kind of gives an idea to any indie that's sort of wondering, like, what steps do I do things in, or what order do I do things in if I'm totally new? I think beyond what we're talking about is then, when you've got more budget to work with, or if you're saving up more budget, like you can continue to run traffic, you can continue listener generation, and then you've already got, the rest of the next step, the education stage of the buddy system kind of planned out in your head a little bit, and you're starting to feel comfortable doing it and comfortable posting things and sharing, comfortable going live. And that will just kind of continue as more people start to engage. And then from there, looking towards list building, whether that be with, running like an album launch or just some other kind of bribe. I think that would be, the next step. And whether you have that going organically and you've just kind of got multiple touch points where people can opt in, or you're running retargeting ads, I think that would be like the next step, thinking further and further down the line as you start to get like a critical mass of people paying attention to you.
Yeah, for sure. And, this is when you're talking about budget, right? Because I know lots of musicians don't have a ton of budget at their disposal. And obviously you can save, and that's what we recommend, but if you are one of those people who's trying to do like $1 a day kind of traffic, then really make sure that you are trying to feed, like put down a big chunk and then do $1 a day on anyone who's warm from that process, right? That's how to get anything out of $1 a day is warm traffic. If you're trying to send $1 a day to cold traffic, you may as well just shut that off, in my opinion. But once you get them into a place where they can be green light warmth, you can feed them all kinds of cool stuff at not a lot of money a day, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's where I would move into what Jack's saying. And even if you don't have a ton of budget, if you've got warm people, it's not as hard to sell, right? So just think about how the buddy system works, right? Basically, and we've talked about that so many times, and it's free on entrepreneur.io it's free with our membership. But if you think about scaling people up, you can come up with one action that would be the next level up for everybody and have a very low spend on it, just have it exist. But it's basically being omnipresent to the people who have elected themselves into eligibility for that audience. And I think that's the progress of how you should invest in things, invest your time, invest your dollars, is getting everybody to the next step. So, and if you don't have anybody on a mailing list, but you have a ton of people who are engaging with you, that's the next step, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I hope that's helpful. I feel like,
yeah,
I want to help. It seems like there's a lot in front of this person.
it's a really hard question to answer, I think, because every artist is different, especially every artist that's starting at the ground level. Like,
Yeah.
you've got a different style, you've got different aspirations. The content that you're creating is going to be vastly different than the guy or gal next to you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it makes it kind of a challenging question, but I think hopefully that helps.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a simple one. Can
Thank
I use
God.
Messenger?
Just
Can I use
kidding.
Messenger instead of an opt-in page? Yes. Yes, you can.
You can do almost anything. You can jump off the top of a building too. Actually, I don't know. That might be against the law. But anyway, but you could. Here's the thing. I mean, I think that I've used Messenger in my opt-in campaigns before. I used Messenger a lot back when we could message people whenever we wanted to. I use it less now. And when I do use it, it is to facilitate a gathering of an email, you know, because for some reason, people clicking on an ad to put in their email on a page is like, whoa, you know, but if they chat with your bot for 10 seconds, then they're okay with it. I mean, I don't understand that, but it is a psychological bridge where they feel like it's more their decision and not something they were prompted to do immediately. But like using Messenger instead of a landing page takes out so many of your options later. And I also don't know if this person is asking like using Messenger as an email collection or Messenger instead of email collection.
I'm going to make the assumption in this question that they are talking about using Messenger to collect emails instead of an opt-in page, because that's the only reason that I would say yes to this question. that is the only circumstance where I would say use Messenger for your opt-ins directly. Is when in a flow, you're using Messenger to, you know, sell your bribe in a way that feels human and cool and, you know, choose your own adventure. But you got to ask for the email. You can't just leave them a Messenger. Not now at the end of 2020 going into 2021.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Messenger just ain't what it used to be.
I know. Well, and you know, I mean, it's always the bad players who ruin all the fun for everyone, you know. But that said, there are still really great things to do with Messenger. And it's, as Jack said, they're interacting with this automation that you've set up. And if you're cheeky about it and you make it obvious that it's, you know, a fun little game, by the time you ask for their email, they're having fun in your little game, you know, like, cause that's the narrative that you put forth. So that can be a more efficient way in some situations of gathering email than through a standard opt-in kind of page. So I do think that there are, with those considerations, I do think that is viable. But does it replace email? Never, no, not, could it, never, ever, no.
Not. Great question, though.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth a test for sure. I think Messenger can be a powerful bridge if you do it right.
Yeah, my email opt-ins are always cheaper via Messenger than going directly for opt-ins.
Super interesting. Yeah, I love it. I hope that you, whoever you are out there, I hope that you take it and you run a badass opt-in campaign. I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's something. Here's another question about opt-ins. Actually, when I get people to opt in to my permission stage, big promise, bribe, how can I run ads to only people who have not opted in and need to be retargeted? Good question about ads.
Sounds like someone has been taking your permission training the way they're phrasing
It does. I love it.
Does it make your heart swell, Grinch?
Yeah. As soon as I saw big promise in there, I was like, that sounds like something I said.
Yeah,
oh man.
That's great.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I love I love that feedback loop. Well, I'll let you answer first. This is obviously, this person's talking right to you, buddy.
This is my bread and butter, ads.
Yeah.
So what I would do in this case, so let's talk about your two different levels of traffic that you're probably talking about here, or that you might be talking about here. One is, who am I targeting the first time that I want them to get offer exposure to my bribe? That would be your warm audience. So I would go after your all warm audience. So your Facebook page engagement, your Instagram engagement, any specific video viewers that you might want to hit, your website traffic. I would go after all of those people, and I would exclude your custom audience that you built. You'll want to upload your email list as a custom audience into Facebook ads. Exclude that at the ad set level, and that will function pretty well as your exclusions, making sure that you're not hitting people who have already opted onto your list. What I would also recommend that you do is set up an exclusion, a custom audience of people who have signed up or reached the confirmation page of your offer. So, once they sign up, they enter their name and email on your opt-in page, and they hit the confirmation thank you page. You have that page pixeled with the lead standard event. You'll want to grab that URL and create a custom audience off of that, or off of the lead standard event, or the custom conversion that you're using. Exclude those people at the ad set level as well, so that the ads don't keep showing to them over and over and over again after they signed up. So that's one thing. That's one thing you can do. That's kind of like your, first level. And then if you wanted to set up retargeting for people who clicked and then didn't opt in, all you would do is create a custom audience of view content on the actual opt-in page. And, you could do, let's just say, to make it simple, you could do a 7-day view content. So people who visited, www.yourbandname.com/cool thing in the past 10 days. You'll set up the audience there.
I want to Google that and see if that's an actual URL now.
Please, yeah, I'm buying that domain right after we get out of this podcast.
I'm sure it's purchased already.
And then you'll exclude the people who have signed up using that thank you page URL. You'll want to exclude those people so that you're making sure that they, you're not retargeting people who already did sign up. And that's all you'll want to do. And maybe you'd run that as a reach campaign, because it's probably going to be a pretty small audience. And you want to make sure that it delivers. But that's how I would do it.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have anything to add to that.
Yeah, that's the way to go about it. Hopefully that'll get you started. We got two more, and then we out. And then we out of hot seat questions.
Then we out, and we're going to eat some gingerbread and open some presents. It's going to be a holly jolly Christmas up in here. So here
Don't let me do that again. No more Christmas puns.
Here's our next question. Not say anything.
I will take any and all opportunities to roast myself publicly. Here's the next question on Creative Juice Hot Seat. What is the best way to grow playlists on Spotify and other streaming platforms with a real and engaged following?
By having a real engaged following.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, I know that sounds kind of snippy, but I think that's the problem, I think, is that, Spotify ads to cold is really, really difficult. And so you're better off, trying to it's right, cart before the horse, right? I mean, Spotify is constantly telling you that they're a great discovery platform. And, I don't know what your experience has been with Spotify, people of the world, but my experience with Spotify is not that. There is not discovery happening. And that's because discovery only happens when you've already generated some kind of discovery yourself, right? And then Spotify's like, oh, the machine at Spotify, I should say, not the people, but the machine at Spotify is like, oh, there's a buzz over here. And now I'll go find more people like those people and I'll continue this buzz. But that discovery really happens most when it's, just piggybacking on a discovery that you've already generated. So, getting an engaged following, this is where fan finders come into play. I can't tell you, I've been running ads for that cold free plus shipping and handling funnel that we talked about, a couple months ago. And I still get people who are, liking it on Instagram and following me off of that and tuning into recurring content and tuning into all this other stuff. So, I think it's growing playlists and, I see so many strategies out there. I get the ads you guys do 10 times a day of, blow up your playlist or spot or whatever, and
yeah.
As Cirque would say, it's, put these big artists on a playlist with you, and then people will find, and it's like, dude, if somebody wants to listen to Ariana Grande, they're going to go to Ariana Grande's profile, or they're going to go to, Pop Hits 1 or something,
Totally. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I think trying to grow a cold playlist with the intention in mind of it being helpful to your artistry, I don't see the benefit, haven't seen the benefit across, many indie X clients that have wanted to do similar things, or
right.
wanted to try doing similar things. While you might get followers, what net positive does that have for you, in the long term as an artist, if that's what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
I rarely see it work that way. Apart from having a playlist with a bunch of artists that maybe are similar to you on it that people listen to, but the overflow into your own music, I rarely see it work out,
Well, and I think that's, if people are going to your playlist to listen to Ariana Grande, maybe you sound like her. If they go to your playlist and listen to Ariana Grande, it's because you told them to go there. Because you're not going to be the most popular playlist with Ariana on it, So now, lecture aside, right? Because I think we've already covered why is Spotify your objective? And we talk about this on multiple episodes. And, Spotify doesn't lead to much of the things that we really hold dear in Entrepreneur. In theory, it can lead to revenue, but, it's not a reliable source for that. And it's not a consistent source of that. Even if you pop, I had a rando song from 2015 pop up on Discover Weekly for 3 months last year. And I don't know why. I didn't do anything different. I got put on a couple of playlists that had a bunch of listeners. And so I was on Discover Weekly for about 3 months, and then it stopped. So I really enjoyed the revenue that came in for those 3 months, and then it was all done. So even if you get it popping on Spotify for a while, it's just not something that's going to be a long-term kind of thing. Now, all that said, to the heart of your question, right, which is how do you grow these playlists? I think, we've done some testing. If y'all didn't know, we have a Spotify initiative at Indepreneur that it was my baby about a year ago, and then Full Stack Merch came up and a founder revamp came up. And so it kind of fell to the wayside because practice what we preach, Spotify is not our highest priority. So, but we started developing playlists for our indies that are genre or mood specific, and we are running IG stories ads to them. And that is the most successful placement that we've seen for Spotify playlisting. Now, that said, please do not email us your track. We love your track, but please don't email it to us. There is, if you're interested in what playlists are currently live and that we are running advertising on, of course, we don't charge anything to submit or to have it on the playlist. We just, curate from the indie community. That's at indepreneur.io/services. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a playlist section. But, like I said, to the heart of your question, IG story ads have been the most successful placement that I've seen as far as growing anything on Spotify. And for us, the narrative is very clearly the style, right? The genre. We have some of the music coordinated with a artist image that is the same artist we're featuring in the playlist cover at that time. And, typically it's just a little bit of motion, but not anything too crazy. We do have the logo on there so that people know that they're going to Spotify. And I think that that's kind of the best way to give them a sample of the music. And, it's way more Madison Avenue than we would normally do, but that's pretty much all you can do for Spotify is, swipe up here to listen to this on Spotify. So again, it's not something I would recommend you prioritize, but if that's what you're focused on, I'm still going to try to give you something you can use. And that's what I would recommend is make a playlist that has a vibe, whether it's got a vibe, right? And make sure you're not using Ariana's song in it. Make sure you're using your song, and so maybe you could try it that way, but it's definitely not something I would recommend. And that's why we started it at Indepreneur, so that we can advertise indies for them instead of them trying to do it. And our narrative will be a hard push on, support independent artists on Spotify.
Totally. Yeah. I've seen the same, kind of concepts apply for folks at IndieX who have wanted to do this kind of thing. Have an angle or a hook or a vibe to your playlist. Get that in the advertising. IG stories placement tends to work best. And yeah, that's I couldn't agree more.
Right. Unfortunately,
make the vibe apparent in your ad creative if you can.
Right.
If you're advertising a playlist for people that might want to be listening at the gym, make that clear in the ad creative.
Right.
Have that in there.
Yeah, it's funny. There's this one playlist that is notorious for paid placement, and I think it's like Workout Rock or something. And I don't listen to it, but I do see it pop up here and there. And of course, the email to submit is like right in there. And there's a dude sitting on a bench with dumbbells. It's like very typecast.
Very macho.
Yeah. Very typecast. And I see bands that I know on it all the time. And I'm like, I know that it breaks my heart that they paid for that because I know they paid for it.
I'm gonna scope this out.
Oh
after
my
we
God.
jump
I
off
have
here
no
and see
idea if
there's
that's
anyone
actually,
I know.
I don't know if that's the actual name of it. I can't even remember, but it's this highly suspect list, that mixes.
Is highly suspect on the list?
No, highly suspect is not on the list. Thank goodness. If they were, it's because that guy's trying to do the same thing, grow a cold playlist. But their drop off rate is insane if you look at the metrics on the playlist and whatever. So, but yeah, I think that it's, again, not something that we recommend as a forward facing, but I'm an IndieX client now. And I asked Ed to build me some Spotify ads because I'm already doing all these other things. And I'm like, let's throw some money at it, see what happens. So it's definitely not something I would say never, ever do it. It can be fun to experiment with. Just know that you're kind of in an uphill battle.
For sure. I think that that's the best advice we can give.
I agree.
Here's the last one. This is a fun one.
I like fun
Corrin,
ones.
I think you'll like this one because it directly applies to something you did this year. I definitely can speak to it as well. What are the pros and cons of running a targeted viral giveaway on TuneSpeak or any other viral giveaway platform to grow your following? Do the followers tend to be quality, and how can you make the most of a viral giveaway campaign? I love this question.
I know there's a ton of terminology out there and I don't want to get stuck on semantics, but targeted and viral are conflicting to me.
Fair.
That doesn't really go together. And I think it's because there are marketing tools that have named themselves viral marketing campaign people, because viral in theory means that it's spreading. And I don't know about you, but between viral campaigns and viruses, I've had enough of viral this year. But
yep, heavily over it.
All that said, so yeah, just keep in mind that targeted and viral don't really go together. Now, again, I don't want to make that semantics. And like I said, I do think some of these companies call themselves viral because in theory it's a person to person sharing kind of situation, but know that viral in and of itself means that it takes on a life of its own, right, and expands far beyond the center of influence that created that content. That's when we talk about like a viral video, we're talking about something that completely exited the 3 degrees of separation from the creator, the 6 degrees of separation, right? So That said, I'm going to focus in on what I believe the intent of your question was, which is, these campaigns where you're like, all right, there's this, and you do all these things and you get points, and then those points add up to prizes and you compete with each other and whatnot. So as Jack said, I've run a TuneSpeak campaign this year, and actually it's closing in like a couple of days, I think, for an album that technically comes out on January 8th, even though a bunch of the singles have been leaked already and whatever, or not leaked, released. And I think that what I found is that for mine, my top prize has a $100 Amazon gift card with it. And then both the first and second prizes have these exclusive merch packs and these custom Vans shoes that have my art on them, and other stuff that is very central to, it would only be of benefit to someone who liked me as an artist and wanted things that were indicative of my artistry. That $100 Amazon card was just, it was just icing on the cake. But in theory, there wouldn't be a lot of people who would participate in that, just for that $100 gift card with all of the actions, and for the fact that it was such a long campaign. I think it's been like an 8-month campaign. So this is something you would have to do literally every day for $100. Like, nobody is going to do it for that. So if you're running like a 30-day campaign and you have a $100 Amazon gift card, you could attract far more people that would be in it for that $100 and not in it for the other cool stuff that you're doing. I think it's really important to have things like, I see things on TuneSpeak all the time. It's like, $500 Amazon gift card. And like, that's the prize. And I'm like, you're just going to get people who want money, like they don't care. Yeah. And what's funny is that with mine, because it was so long, it was very evident when there were people who like didn't realize how long it was, came into it for that $100 Amazon gift card, realized that it was 8 months, and after doing it for a few days, we're like, oh man, screw this. Like, this is not worth it for $100. And so fortunately mine was long enough where I could filter those out. But if yours is shorter, which, 90% of TuneSpeak campaigns or more is shorter than the one that I've done. I would actually suggest against those kinds of prizes and make it stuff that, what would your biggest fan love to have from you, and make that the top prize. And then it kind of, I think it's not worth compromising the loyalty to your artistry to get more people in it,
Yeah, especially if they're just signing up for a, $500 or something like that.
Right. Because you'll import them to your mailing list, and they'll mark it as spam, or they'll unsubscribe, and then they're gone. And so, they maybe liked your Facebook page in the process, or watched a YouTube video, and then they get in your greenlight warmth audience and they're not actually interested in you. Like, that's the kind of stuff that just, advertising nightmares are made of,
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, like, going back to the term targeted, like, when it comes to giveaways, like, your prize really is your targeting, to make sure that the people you get in the giveaway signing up are qualified,
right?
Qualified to be a fan, qualified to get what they're signing up for. Your use case is actually really interesting, Corrin, that, the $100 gift card in a short period of time probably would have attracted a whole bunch of, like, garbage leads, so to speak.
Yeah.
But because it was such a long campaign, that was just icing on the cake for the people who actually wanted the cool stuff that you were offering. And that was sort of just like the additional bonus. That's actually a really good, I think that's a really good takeaway point for people who are thinking about doing this. Like, if you wanted to do, a more generic prize, consider extending the length of your campaign as a way to sort of mitigate the risk there.
Right. Yeah, I think, and I've seen these not just on TuneSpeak, but all over the internet, right? I mean, think about it. How many times in your email do you get some spam thing for, like, win a $500 Best Buy gift card? And it's like, well, first off, maybe you don't click on it, but maybe you do,
Yeah.
And, like, maybe you do, even though you have no idea who this person is. Assume that someone is 10% less smart than you, right? They're going to click on it. They're going to go there. They have no idea who sent them this email. They have no idea the terms and conditions. They're just going to put their email in because they might win a $500 Best Buy gift card, right? And I mean, that's really how you have to think about it when you are running that kind of campaign for yourself. So, and there's also, with the prizes that I have set up, again, like, it is very in tune to my artistry. They get, like, 10 pieces of apparel that have the planets from my greatest hits covers, right? Like, nobody's going to want to wear that unless, they really care about what those planets are and mean.
Right.
And so then getting into it, right? Outside of the prizes, once you get on the back end of it, and like with TuneSpeak, there are lots of different actions that people can take to earn these entries, these points. And some of them might be, listen to this on Spotify. I think I have, like, Spotify songs up there. You can play them up to 3 times a day for 60 points a piece or something like that. I can have them follow a playlist on Spotify or Apple Music. I can have them watch a YouTube video up to 3 times a day. I can have them follow me on Spotify. I can have, so there are all these different actions where they can get points. And, then I had surveys, right? Like, what color would you want your Vans shoes to be? And that wasn't really, it was just to give them more things to answer, and be a part of. And the things that are most valuable on my action list are go check out CC points, go check out the Gilded experience, right? The things that are going to bring them into more and more of the nurturing things I have set up. So, make sure that your actions are leading them back to you. I think that's something that a lot of people think about, these vanity metrics. Oh, like me on Spotify, follow me here, do this. But it's like, if you can, with whatever provider you're using, set an incentive to bring them to something cool where you can nurture them further, do that. That is more valuable to you. And you'll be able to really suss out who's full of crap and who's not, because somebody who's in it for the $100 Amazon gift card is probably not going to want to do that. They're not going to want to hear from you more and go click on, check out this web page of mine, So having things like that makes that campaign have a much longer life after the campaign ends, because at that point you've brought them into, a web page that you're retargeting, or a place where you're getting the emails, or whatever it is,
Yeah, I feel like it's really like the critical thinking involved in all portions of this kind of campaign beyond just what the prize is. It's also, well, how do I make the most of these bonuses and allocate points accordingly based on what I want people to do, and why do I want people to do the things that I'm asking them to do. Have a reason and a purpose behind all of it as much as you can. I think that's how you make the most of a viral giveaway.
Agree. Yeah. I think it's definitely, it's easy to get caught up in the social metrics that are normally associated with these types of campaigns. But, the number of people that I've seen progress, because TuneSpeak does a great job, because not only was I sharing this contest, but they also have a mailing list where essentially they send you an email that's like, hey, this is the number of entries or the number of points you have in this campaign. You might also be interested in these. And they do a really good job targeting the ones that are very similar to you in genre and style. And so I've actually got a lot of new people from that, and people who have turned into customers, because I'm tracking all that in my mailing list provider. Hey. But these are people that there are some that have converted into paying customers, or, fans in my Facebook group or whatever. So you want to make sure that there's opportunity for them to do that. And I think that's probably the thing that's missed the most in these campaigns is, you want them to enjoy you as an artist, as a musician, but, how are you going to make sure they're there when this campaign is over?
Heavy agree.
Yar. Is that
That
it?
covers it.
That's
I
all
think
our
that
questions?
covers it. I don't have anything more to say about viral giveaways, and that is our last question in this hot seat round.
Amazing. Well,
We did it. We made it through.
I need to get a fan. I need to get some ice on my butt. I don't know. It's nice and
The
cold
seat is
out.
hot. I'm going to let it, going to let the seat cool down.
Yeah.
Build a snowman, have Christmas.
Yeah.
All of that.
Well, whatever holiday you celebrate this month, or if you celebrate none, I hope that you had an amazing December. We certainly have. And we're going to be back next week for one last episode to talk about our predictions for 2021, which, could be wrong, could be right, but it's going to be fun no matter what. So we'll see you for that one next week on Creative Juice.
Peace out, Indies.
Can y'all really feel the East Coast, feel the West Coast?